So again, we're making these, we're mounting this reversal. Okay, so we need these two pictures to go together, and we need them to go together semi-seamlessly. Okay, so the trick to this project again is matching the tones. Otherwise, it's not going to look right. Okay, or you're going to notice that there's two different pictures there. Like this one, you can see, especially right here, these whites are pretty spot on. So from a distance, you can't even see the seam of these photos. Okay, so that's the trick of this project, is mounting these correctly. Better. Okay, so I have my two mirror images here. Okay, so I need to figure out which way I want these to go together. Okay, so maybe I want this person in the image to go together this way. Maybe I want it to go together this way or this way. Okay, so I need to make that decision how I'm going to join these, okay, where the seam is going to be. So for this one, I'm probably going to put the person together. Okay, so as I do that, the first cut I want to make is the seam. I want that to go together first. So that's the only cut I'm going to make. So I'm not even going to put this against the rail here, but I'm just going to kind of eyeball these seams a little bit as I cut this. I'm not worried about any of the other edges right now. So I cut that. Okay, so all I want, and it might take a little bit of whittling down. Sometimes, I mean, you can see the paper itself doesn't line up. So I'm not looking at that at all. I'm just looking at the image itself. And I want to check that it's going to look how I want it to look. The lines will line up where I want them to. Sometimes you got to trim a little bit back and forth. Okay. When I get that seam looking how I want it to, then we can move forward. So as I put these two together, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check this seam, and I want to really butt these up against each other nice. So that seam is perfect. So they're not overlapping, because then you'll have a bump, but they're just butted together really nice. Okay? And then I can take a piece of masking tape or painter's tape, whatever. I'm holding that and I'm taping those two together. Okay? So that's the first thing I want to do. Once I get it taped, then I can start putting the dry mount tissue on. So the dry mount tissue, I'm going to put this first piece on, and it's going to overlap that seam. Because later on, right before I mount this, I'm going to have to peel the tape off, and the dry mount tissue is going to hold this together. Okay? So as I mount the dry mount tissue, I'm going to drag it slowly like we do, but I'm going to go across the seam so that it's melted to both pictures.
Are you doing it on that paper or the other paper?
Sorry?
Are you doing it on that same paper, like the kind of paper that is, or is it the same?
Oh, this is just a printout from the computer, but you're going to use your photo paper.
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, this is just a little bit thinner. But now I've got the tissue on here. So later on, I'm not in any hurry to peel the tape off, but later on, when I peel the tape off, the tissue will hold it together. Make sense?
I have a question.
Yep. He's using fiber paper for a different project. So once I get at least one piece of paper across the seam here, I can get other little scraps and I can tack those on to the ends. And now we can trim it off. So I'll pretend like I tack those pieces on, and now we'll trim. So now we got all our dry mount tissue on the back, and I didn't put it on here, but we're going to pretend that I did. Okay, so there you have bits hanging off all over the place. So the first thing that you want to do is cut one edge. So I'm going to eyeball this edge, and I want to keep it. As I eyeball the first edge, I can use the other lines that are on this cutting board to check that it's square. And I'm using the edge here. I'm watching the corner of this and the corner of this. Sometimes your picture might not be lined up, but you can check, use these edges as reference points to check that it's square also. And then I can make my first cut. And that first cut will level off the whole bottom, okay, or whatever side you're doing. But once that first side is level, now we can bring this down. I can put that freshly cut side against the straight edge, and all my cuts thereafter should be perpendicular, so right angles. So you'll get really nice, everything else should follow after that. So I can butt it against here. I'm using these lines to make sure it's not angled, but make sure it's straight. Especially because this one's going to be a little bit longer. If you don't cut it correctly, it can look a little wonky. So I'm holding that here. And now we've got it all trimmed down. Okay? So now we can go on with the regular matting. Tack this down, and then I would probably tack this down, and then right before you put it onto the hot press, you can peel the tape off. Okay?